and conservative. Today I want to talk about a dangerous Marxist academic philosophy that's being drafted by left-wing radicalized black scholars and presently being adopted by the academic world under the pretext of academic activism. This is a concept that when you look at it logically, it appears to be designed with no other purpose other than to contaminate America's young minds, whether it's black, brown, or white, and fill it with hatred and despise for America and what it is that the American flag truly represents. Project 1619 and the critical race theory, as they are known, are both being adopted into our schools under the pretext of academic movements, and it's happening right now nationwide in America. This extremely dangerous academic agenda, defined as Project 1619 and the critical race theory, aren't based on facts but instead on race-based philosophies and historical speculation. Both movements are promoted not only in America but across Africa in the form of Pan-Africanism, which is a major black international political movement responsible for the murder and land expropriation of white farmers and landowners across Africa. Project 1619 is based on the concept that America was founded on slavery, which is why they reference the number 1619, or the date that the first slave of African descent was brought to the Americas, and that America, because of this, was founded on slavery. Now, imagine hearing that public schools are being allowed to encourage our kids into believing that the country that they were born in was founded on slavery, hatred, and racism. Could you imagine the impact this would have on our children and their perception of the nation that they were born in, and how racist it would then appear to them to hear anyone speaking about national pride or patriotism? It is for this reason that I've decided to share the facts with you guys and share historical truths selected to discredit both the 1619 Project and the critical race theory. Now, for starters, to imply that America was founded on slavery and using the date 1619 is both ridiculous and misinformative, and here's the reasoning behind my conclusion. First, I'd like to say that, yes, the first slaves of African descent were brought to the North American continent in 1619. But slaves were already being traded in North Africa through the Barbary slave trade. And they weren't black Africans, they were white Christians who were slaves. Also, people of African descent were not brought to the U.S. since the United States of America wasn't founded. For historical clarification, the first British colony in America, in North America, Virginia was a colony of the British Empire, not a state of the American Republic. It wasn't until 1776 that the 13 British colonies, who were fed up with the British Empire's taxes and tyranny, united and declared themselves an independent nation in the form of the original 13 colonies. But just to show how quick they tried to reconcile slavery, the new American Republic immediately began plans on freeing the slaves. How do we know this? Well, less than 40 years after the United States of America declared itself an independent republic, Republicans and conservatives went on to found the American Colonization Society, which would go on to use taxpayer money to unkidnap or sponsor the freeing of people of African descent and that traveled back to land purchased for them in Africa, if they so wanted. Between 1821 and 1847, thousands of African Americans chose to go back to the motherland, emigrating to land that was purchased for them by Republican and conservative congressmen, settling in what would later become known as Liberia. And although by 1865, after the Civil War, people of African descent were freed here in North America, by 1868, Liberia was well established and declared itself an independent and free nation. Many liberal and progressive scholars try and taint this history with claims that this was due to racism, because they didn't want black people in America. But if that were the case, the American Colonization Society would have gone out their way to purchase the slaves located in the western Ivory Coast of Africa and freed them into the newly founded Liberia, representing liberty and freedom. Understanding these dates and points in time in history Is it precise to imply America was founded on slavery and therefore inherently racist, as Project 1619 implies and wishes to teachers in public school? No, because 1. Slavery started under the British Empire in 1619 and ended under the American Republic in 1865. And 2, if America was inherently racist, America wouldn't have fought the Civil War and fulfilled their promise of freeing the slaves, as well as writing the 13th Amendment, which guaranteed equal rights for people of African descent. And this was way before the American Colonization Society began to free them. So intention is everything. Conclusively, we don't have to dig too deep into the critical race theory, since it is fundamentally flawed and is backed by no proof, just speculation. Critical race theorizes that black societal problems are created and the product of societal structures founded on white supremacy culture. But if that's the case, why are Asians biracial more economically successful than white Americans? Or Indians, who have more melanin than most Latinos, including me? Why then isn't white supremacy holding them down? Why isn't it holding Muslims back from building up their communities in Brooklyn almost overnight? Why isn't it holding anyone back except African Americans? Maybe, just maybe, it has nothing to do with the systems which govern how America functions. Maybe the attention should be placed on a people who can't seem to adapt and adjust to a system that, although considered a window of opportunity for many, continues to be perceived as culturally incompatible with these specific groups. Just something to think about. With that being said, I want everybody to stay safe, stay informed, and God bless.
I love when cats think they're bigger than a sumo. That's when I hit them with a little Puerto Rican judo. Oh, you don't know what that is. That's when I say, you don't know who got this thing. And you don't know?